We are in conversation with Dr. Erik Landry from the United States of America. And Dr. Landry, you are also a specialist in the area of asparagus production.
Yeah, it's more of a, I don't know, an unintended affiliation.
And you did that as part of your master's?
Yes. Yes.
In Guelph, right?
Yeah,
the University of Guelph.
The University of Guelph, and they're
in Canada.
In Canada,
Okay.
So they're growing asparagus in Canada. They've been for some time. Basically, the premise of the project was to identify cultivars that have improved winter hardiness. So across asparagus, you're going to have varieties that are better adapted to cold conditions or hot conditions, dry conditions, or more moist conditions, right? So it's important when we're thinking about asparagus to identify the most appropriate variety for our local growing conditions.
So, Doctor, I mean, it's fortuitous, right? It's just we were just very, very fortunate. The Samdrup Jongkhar Initiative of all the things in the world, the Samdrup Jongkhar Initiative has a pilot impact area project on asparagus in Orong Gewog, and you come here and you happen to be an asparagus specialist, and you have visited the asparagus pilot impact area. Tell us about your initial thoughts on this.
Right. I mean, when I first heard about asparagus growing in Bhutan, I was like, okay, let's see what this is all about. And then coming to Samdrup Jongkhar, really unexpectedly, didn't realize it was a subtropical climate, unlike Thimphu, which is much cooler. And we have this monsoon climate, moisture pattern. But after looking into it a little bit further, I think it's a viable project. But it's gonna take some time and probably some selection from farmers to find out the most appropriate asparagus genotypes for this climate specifically. You know, they started with a variety that's called Mary Washington, and that's from the United States. It's a very diverse population, so you're going to have early plants, late plants. You know, you have a lot of genetic diversity there to work with, which is a benefit. But initially, I think it may not be where they would really want it to be. Luckily, there's a few farmers who are really interested in saving seeds.
Asparagus seeds.
Asparagus seeds. So we talked a little bit, and they're aware of selecting the best plants, the best seeds from the best plants, and basically creating locally adapted asparagus. There's another variety out there called Haleo. It starts with a J. And that's a variety that has a low chill requirement. And here we don't really have a cold. It doesn't really it doesn't freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whereas in Toronto, you're going to have months of negative 20 Celsius. And so you really need plants that will tolerate that. But here we don't need that. We can actually have low chill or no dormancy, and plants are just producing spears potentially even all year round. Right? But that's gonna take some trial and error on the farmer's part, and in collaboration with the Samdrup Jongkhar Initiative and the agricultural extension agents in Orong.
So what will be your pit instructions to the farmers and to the agriculture extension officers when it comes to asparagus production, like in terms of maintenance, care, inputs?
We have a great case study. Should be available on the website soon if it hasn't already been uploaded. And within that, it details step by step of what should be done or what should be considered to be done. And it's really general. So you're gonna have to look at maybe more site specific. But the basic principle is treat it more like a vegetable. But it is also a perennial too, so it needs space and it needs maintenance. It's not maintenance free. You can't just plant it and forget about it, because eventually it will die. You know, it's just like any other crop. It needs care.
Spacing. Let's talk about spacing first.
Okay. I mean, yeah, spacing. I mean, you could think of it similar to bamboo, right? So, bamboo is a clump, and initially it's small, but give it a few years, and it will continue to grow out and get fairly large. So with bamboo, it's unlike let's say Napier grass or some other fodder grass, which you're planting a lot closer. Bamboo's recommended to plant, much further apart. So for asparagus, you're thinking like a meter is adequate if you want your plants to be productive for the next 100 years.
It can last that many years?
It can last if it's
maintained.
If it's maintained, it can last for 100 years, at least 100 years. Now, in production, asparagus rarely lasts more than 10 years. Usually the plants are taken out at 10 years because they're not as productive, and the main reason for that is the accumulation of disease and stress because they're over harvested. Right. So when you harvest the asparagus spear, that's taking resources out of the plant, and the longer you harvest it for, the less time it has for that the developing fern to accumulate resources again for the crown that then produces spears. And that's one reason why dormancy is so key here, is because it's a period of rest from accumulation to mobilization, which is when you harvest spears. So there's got to be probably like a 6-month period of accumulation.
Dormancy?
No. Accumulation is when the fern is up, green,
okay, and
accumulating. And then dormancy can vary, but it's good to have a period of dormancy. That's why if you're doing if you're harvesting spears, let's say all year round in the same plant, the plants aren't really going to last very long. They'd be lucky if they lasted 10 years, because you're really starving them over a period of time. If you want it to last 100 years, you only harvest, you never harvest more than a month. And then you have at least 6 months of storage, period of dormancy, and then another month of harvest. So you're really looking at 6+ months, right?
Of dormancy.
No, of accumulation, because it depends on how long your winter is. Like, so in Canada, the dormancy is long. Right?
So, can you explain dormancy versus accumulation?
Accumulation is when the fern is beautiful and green.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, the resources are going into the root system and storing those resources for regrowth. Because eventually the fern will die, or what we call senesce, so it turns yellow, and then usually you burn that or you compost it in some other way, because there's diseases that can accumulate over time, so you have to remove the fern, dispose of it in some way. And given the right conditions, the ferns, spears will continue to come up all year round, and they will continue to produce ferns. In Canada, they can't, because it gets too cold, right? So it goes into dormancy. Where asparagus was domesticated in the Mediterranean, it's fairly warm in the wintertime. It does get cool, and there is a period of dormancy, but the reason why it goes into dormancy is because of, usually because of drought conditions in late summer. So it gets dry, which is similar to here.
Yes.
After the monsoon, it will get dry. It'll induce dormancy unless you keep watering it, right? But you don't really want to water it after the monsoon. Once the monsoon stops, stop watering it, let it go, let it senesce and go dormant. And then at some point, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever you want to do, then you apply water to it, or you wait for the monsoon to come and water it for you, and then the ferns will naturally come out. I mean, the spears will naturally come out. You can harvest those for 2 to 4 weeks after the crowns are established, for 2 to 4 years. And you can come and harvest for about a month at the most, I would say. You can harvest later, but you're risking stressing the plant out. Diseases come in and plants die, right? So you let the fern establish for the monsoon, get all of its resources. After the monsoon, the cycle starts all over again. So during the monsoon, we can look at that as the accumulation phase, and then during the dry season, we can look at it as the dormancy phase. And at some point, you're going to go for regeneration. And it all depends on if you have irrigation or if you're waiting on the monsoon.
So the ferns, when they mature,
yes,
they need to be burned.
Yeah, when they senesce, so when they turn yellow. And you have to wait. That's another thing that was that's important that I found in my research, was you have to wait until they're fully yellow. Maybe even towards brown, but at least yellow. Because at that point, you can look at it as the longevity factor is transported from the fern to the crown, which is the root system. My research showed that it was most likely nitrogen and proteins that are being translocated to the crown. But if you harvest it, if you harvest it just when it's still green, you're really stressing out the plant. If you're cutting the fern off while it's still green, wait until it's yellow, fully yellow, cut it. And here it'll probably take some time because it's not cold. Right? So usually when it gets colder, the senescing process happens even quicker. It does get cooler here, and you'll see, and then you wait a bit, and then you can put water on it again. So what'll happen over time is the rhizome, it's like ginger over each other, and eventually it'll start coming almost out of the surface of the soil, and that's not ideal. You really want a good 6 inches, so a ½ foot from the surface of the soil to the rhizome. The rhizome really shouldn't be at the surface of the soil because you get lodging and moisture too. Keeping that rhizome moist and not drying out will reduce the stress. So by adding in compost, just 1 or 2 inches a year. Doesn't have to be a lot, but it's important to do it annually. And I think it would be advisable to do that right after you cut all the ferns off. So in between, sometime in the period of dormancy, you want to apply that compost so that when the ferns come up, that fertility is going into the crown, is being absorbed, and is going into healthy spear and fern production.
We could talk more, Doctor, but
there's always more to talk about.
there's always more to talk about. But we have an excellent case study on asparagus, right?
Yes, and that's available online.
Yes, on www.sgi.bt. And Dr. Landry, thank you for sharing us your gems of wisdom on asparagus and seed saving.
Thank you for having me here.